Good morning, everyone. Rise and shine. It is time for the qualifying. And we are here at the Sachsenring in Germany, psyched to get started here today. We had a really brilliantly exciting race yesterday. I mean, the Sachsenring truly is very exciting and very challenging, not only on the driver, but also on the material. We've got 13 turns and 3.7 kilometers. It's a very tricky racetrack. You either love it or hate it, but we certainly love it. And we can't wait to get qualifying in just a bit. And the man who actually grabbed the lead from Kelvin van der Linde is Mirko Bortolotti. He's leading the championship, and then 6 points behind him is Kelvin van der Linde, and then 10 points behind Mirko is Maro Engel. So it's pretty exciting at this point of the championship with only 5 races to go, because it's only 10 points between these three who are fighting for the championship. It's going to be truly exciting at this point. And of course, it's all about the points, as we know, and it starts with the qualifying. So let's do it. Here you commentators enjoy. Well, we enjoy the sunshine, you enjoy the qualifying.
Thanks very much, Verena. Good morning, everybody. Yes, welcome back to the Sachsenring for day 2. It's going to be another stunning day here in East Germany. We've got currently a track temperature nearly 24 degrees. It's 21 degrees air temperature. It's going to be pushing up into the late 20s by the time we get to the race this afternoon. And there on screen, you can see Maro Engel, who had a good race yesterday from 5th on the grid to pick up 3rd place. And that's his 4th consecutive podium finish of the season. He's still in 3rd place in the championship, but he was 12 behind the leader until yesterday. He's now 10 behind, as Verena said, and there are 25 points up for grabs in the race this afternoon, and also bonus 3 points up for grabs if you get pole position today, 2 if you qualify 2nd, and a point if you qualify in 3rd place. Jack Aitken did what René Rast had done earlier in the season and what Sheldon van der Linde did last time out at the Nürburgring. He went from 9th to 4th with a race win in the championship. So he's only 44 points adrift, still around about 140 points up for grabs this season as well. Can Jack Aitken have 2 consecutive quick days, good days? That hasn't happened yet. Every time he's got a win, the next day hasn't gone according to plan. There's a look at the track then, just over 3.6 kilometers long. It runs in an anti-clockwise direction. It's incredibly undulating. It is incredibly quick. And the crowd here, massively enthusiastic. We've had 7 DTM races here over the years. The first one all the way back in the year 2000. Mercedes were the first brand to win a DTM race at this circuit. It was Klaus Ludwig that took the victory. Bernd Schneider has been a winner here in the past, and Laurent Aiello as well for the Abt Sportsline team on his way to his championship title in 2002. Then we came back here for the first time in more than 20 years last year in 2023 and had victories for Mirko Bortolotti in the Lamborghini and for the Mercedes of Luca Stolz. And we still haven't had a Mercedes win since then. Maro Engel and Mirko Bortolotti are 2 of the key championship contenders, but neither has yet won a race. They have, though, had lots of podium finishes. Kelvin van der Linde yesterday, a frustrating day. He had complaints on the radio in qualifying that Marco Wittmann had gone off the road a couple of times in front of him, distracted him in qualifying. He was 10th on the grid. Had a good start, went up to 6th place initially, but then just seemed to run out of steam later on in the race. But he had a really good battle with Thomas Preining. It was a fearsome battle. There was no love lost between the pair of them. Various complaints on the radio, each trying to get the other one a penalty, some contact along the way. But in the end, Thomas Preining, with a great move, got down the inside at turn 1. And then Kelvin lost more places to René Rast, who had brilliant drive from the very back of the grid yesterday to get up to 7th place with a mega move on Kelvin down into turn 12 at the fastest part of the circuit. And he also then had his brother Sheldon van der Linde breathing down his neck in the latter stages of the race. 8th place yesterday for Kelvin van der Linde, but the top 3 in the championship continue their run of finishing in the points in every race. But yesterday, Ricardo Feller's brilliant run of 26 consecutive point-scoring finishes finally came to an end, because for the first time since the end of the 2022 season, he didn't finish in the points. He didn't finish the race. He had a brake problem in the end. But Thomas Preining's record goes on with points yesterday. He's now had 27 consecutive point-scoring finishes. And you saw Max Powell there. And Lucas Auer getting ready to go in. We're going to start slightly behind a schedule because had a red flag in the next-gen qualifying session just before we came on air. So this session was due to start in around about 10 seconds' time, but it will start at 9:23. It'll be 20 minutes of qualifying, and it will set the grid for round 12 of the championship. The race coming up at 1:30 this afternoon. So here in the commentary box, it's me, Chris Hartley, and to help talk you through qualifying, it's good morning to Brian Oliver.
Good morning, Chris. Looking forward to today. Something a bit different to yesterday. Of course, all the teams had a free practice session in which to get their setups perfected for qualifying. Straight into qualifying today. Weather conditions absolutely perfect. There is a massive queue to get in today. Massive crowd here watching. Took us a while to get into the circuit this morning. It's a very, very popular event at this very, very popular circuit. A circuit that is like no other. Nicknamed the Mini Nordschleife, and for very good reasons. Lots of undulation, lots of blind crests, always provides exciting racing, almost always provides controversy.
In terms of the other points championships, the manufacturer standings, Lamborghini lead that championship, but only by 1 point now from Mercedes, after Mercedes outscored them yesterday with their best two cars scoring 29 points. That was third and fourth for Maro Engel and Luca Stolz. So 289 points for Lamborghini, 288 points for Mercedes, and not far behind in third are BMW on 271 points. The teams championship is being led by Schubert Motorsport. The BMWs, they got 258 points now, 27 points clear of Abt Sportsline, who only scored 8 points yesterday. And everybody was caught up a little bit by Winward Racing yesterday. They've got 216 points and are in third place in the team standings. Jack Aitken, then the winner yesterday, celebrating, marking the 100th anniversary of Emil Frey Racing. Emil Frey, the man that set up the business initially as a workshop selling bicycles and putting bicycles and motorcycles together in Switzerland. The anniversary is on the 1st of October. They've got various celebrations going on, a big event at the factory as well coming up. So Jack Aitken marking that anniversary with a win, his third of the season. But Brian, as I said at the top of the show, every time Jack has won a race this year, the next race has not gone according to plan. He needs to change that if he wants to get in this championship fight.
Yes, it does seem to be a bit of a curse that has followed him throughout the season. He is the only driver to have won three races this season, and yet he's not challenging at the very top of the points. Of course, that could all change today. Qualifying is very important. Jack will have that additional success ballast of 20 kilos on board. Don't think that's going to help too much around a circuit with the abrasive surface on it here at the Sachsenring. But this qualifying session will be important. He'll want to qualify as far up as he can because he won't be carrying that success ballast in the qualifying session. If there's anything like yesterday, we're going to see the cars come out, do one installation lap, come in, sit around for 10 minutes, and then we're going to have a massive shootout for the last 10 minutes of quali.
Yeah, and as you explained really well yesterday, it's all to do with getting the heat soak and getting the tyres up to temperature so that they can then go out and bang in 2 or 3 quick laps in succession.
So this is that moment. They're not just tootling around just to check everything works. I mean, there is a systems check that goes on, but every car, we say every car, yesterday, Abt Sportsline decided to keep both of their cars in the garage, but every other car went out, did one lap, and this looks like what's happening again here. Getting the heat into the brakes, into the tyres, then the car comes back to the garage, and then while it's stationary, the heat from the brakes transfers through the wheel rims into the tyres to get the heat there, to give the drivers the best possible opportunity to then get the tyres into the window when they come out for their hot laps, which will be later on in the session.
It's kind of a way of getting around the fact that there are no tyre warmers allowed these days in not just DTM, but most forms of motorsport. Actually, you don't have that advantage anymore.
I know that tyre warmers is sometimes a bit of a controversial issue, and Thomas Jaeger of Mercedes-AMG is actually advocating tyre warmers. He says if you're thinking about the environment, well, the argument is you use more fuel and brakes getting the tyres up to temperature than you would in terms of energy for a tyre blanket. And he's saying we should have tyre warmers in qualifying only, which is an interesting argument.
But playing devil's advocate, he would say that because the Mercedes are notoriously bad at getting their tyres up to temperature. Something that's less of an issue here because it is A, hot, and B, it's so abrasive around here that in fact, when you get to the race, stopping the tyres getting too hot becomes the issue, doesn't it? And we saw that yesterday. The times are quick to start with at the beginning of a race, the first 10 minutes of a race, but then they really drop off, don't they?
Yeah, and it is, as you say, such an abrasive surface. And you pointed out yesterday, actually getting the tyres evenly balanced, because the first couple of corners on the circuit are right-handers, but it's primarily left-handers for the remainder of the circuit, which puts all of the pressure onto the right-hand tyres of the car means that when they get round to turn 1 the next time around, there's not an even balance of temperature across the tyres. Mirko Bortolotti into the pits. I think that's just a routine thing at the moment, but it looks like they've just been doing a rehearsal tyre change there.
Yeah, we had some onboard pictures from Arjun Maini. Another good, strong finish yesterday for Arjun in the top 5 to move him back up to 8th place in the championship. He was running 5th in the championship before the Nürburgring, but had his only really bad weekend of the season there. But the Indian driver doing a fantastic job. He's been with HRT team for a few seasons now, and they've worked hard over the winter to get the car better in qualifying trim, which has made a massive difference. His qualifying performance has been way up on what they were last year. He scored last year 30 points all season, and Arjun Maini has already got 93 points. We've still got 5 races to go and 5 qualifying sessions to go, so he's easily outperformed himself. He's having his best season so far in the championship, and his grid qualifying positions have been very good as well. He's averaged 7th on the grid, whereas last year he was averaging near the back of the grid in qualifying, which then made life very difficult coming through in the races with it being so tight. So 7th on average this year. Last year was 19th on average. So hats off to Arjun and to the HRT team for the massive leap forward that they've made together this season. Well, a few have stayed out and actually completed a lap here, Brian. Jack Aitken being one of them. 1 minute 20.543. It's not exactly a mega lap yet, but 1:21.269 for Kelvin van der Linde. He stayed out as well. Ricardo Feller, we learned yesterday after qualifying, picked up a puncture in the first part of qualifying, so that was why he was running out of kilter with everybody else. Was going around on his own at the very end of the session and couldn't improve and ended up 19th on the grid. Oh, we've had an off for Ben Durr. It was just outside the points yesterday for the Durr Motorsport team. And we saw this a lot yesterday morning at this sort of time of day in free practice too, didn't we? With lots of cars going off the road at turns 12 and 13.
It's a very tricky track to keep the car on the grey stuff, and that's exactly what has tripped Ben Durr up there, turn 1, isn't it? Yeah, there's no runoff areas on this circuit. You can see the gravel trap is very deep, and once the car becomes stationary on the gravel trap, it's not going anywhere as Jack Aitken now peels off into the pit lane. But yes, not much in the way of track limits issues here because there's no runoff area. And as Thomas Preining said yesterday, the track limits kind of manage themselves. It's natural track limits here, because if you exceed track limits, you're going into the gravel trap.
The fastest time in qualifying yesterday set by Thomas Preining. He didn't get to start on pole position because from picking up 3 reprimands over the course of the season, the third of which was for track limits last time out at the Nürburgring. He had a 5-place grid penalty, which put him back to 6th on the grid. But yesterday, Thomas's lap time was a record. We've only got a year's data to go by in terms of DTM GT3 lap records, but yesterday, a 1:17.199. So we're looking realistically at getting in the 1:17s. Whether it'll be quite as quick, though, we don't know, because it's not quite as warm as it was. And again, the track there, as Luca Engstler showing, is a little bit slippery still compared to what it has been. But he's set the fastest lap so far nonetheless, which is a pretty competitive 1:18.2. I do think we might not quite get as quick as we went yesterday, but I still think we should be probably looking at 1:17s, maybe mid to high 1:17s for pole position. And there you go, Ricardo Feller, 1:17.958, proves exactly that.
And it's also interesting that AB Sportsline are doing an exact opposite strategy to what they did yesterday, because both of their cars sat in the garage, didn't even do the installation lap at the start of the session, just waited till late in the session. It didn't pay off for them. I think they maybe have been looking at the data and deciding that wasn't the way forwards. Quite the opposite today, because Kelvin van der Linde and Ricardo Feller already with times on the board, and of course Ricardo Feller the first into the 17s.
This is going to be a good lap from Luca Engstler. He was only a fraction down in the first sector and half a tenth down in the second sector, so he's already second, but I think he could get a slightly quicker lap than he had before, maybe just break into the 1:17s or a very low 1:18 if he holds it together here. Over the line he goes, it's 1:18.1, so it is a better lap for him, and he remains second behind Ricardo Feller. But they're the only two that have set proper lap times yet. But there goes Clement Schmidt over the line, 1:17.920. Provisional pole position by 38 thousandths of a second for the Austrian.
Yeah, this is very different to yesterday. As we look again, it's going to be a wild ride out of turn 13, just getting a couple of wheels onto the gravel. You think he might be pushing a little bit. So there are just 4 cars out on the track, which is 4 more than we had at this point in the session yesterday. But 4 cars that are circulating and continue to circulate. So Ricardo Feller, Kelvin van der Linde, who now peels off into the pits, Clemens Schmid and Luca Enxler, they're out on track. So adopting slightly different strategies to yesterday.
Yeah, got to bank a lap in now, haven't you? Essentially, so you've got time to come in, change things over, get back out again, and have another run at it. So more of a traditional approach to qualifying. Last year we saw it starting to creep in where some drivers and Abt were again, particularly Ricardo Feller, quite often doing this, going out right at the end of the session, leaving it till the last 7 minutes of the session before they really went out. But this year, it's kind of caught, hasn't it? And everybody's been doing it. And pretty much every session this year, they've done exactly what you said, gone out, done a recce lap, got a bit of heat soak, and then gone out with 7-8 minutes to go. But then it becomes chaotic because you're trying to get 2 laps in. Everybody's on the track. People get in your way, which is what happened to Kelvin van der Linde yesterday. And if you make one mistake, you've got no time to correct it.
And you've got to be especially brave on a track like this because you are dependent on everybody else keeping it out of the gravel trap as well, because someone else could end up in the gravel and ruin your lap. Mirko Bortolotti is on team radio.
Is already new tires? No.
No. He boarded it. He did a 19.5. He comes in now. I think he did just a check run, and they're changing the tires now. I will have an eye on it.
Interesting that, isn't it? So that's Mirko asking, these guys that are setting pretty good lap times at the moment, they are new tyres. Because that means the track is slower than it was yesterday. And they're like, no, they're not. So obviously the teams have got people spotting what other teams are doing with their tyres up and down the pit lane.
It's good, isn't it? You've got one eye on your own car and another eye on the other 19 cars that are up and down the pit lane. Well, those look like some nice brand new tyres that are getting wheeled out, and the best rubber that they've got will now be primed and ready for the second half of this qualifying session. We're reaching the halfway point. 117.9 is better than we had yesterday, Clemens Schmid at this point, but it's going to be very busy before too long because everybody's going to go out together. As I was about to say, before we had team radio, for drivers out on a hot lap and they've left it till late in the session, then a yellow or red flag comes out, it means they will not be able to set a hot lap and they may find themselves back further down the pack. And here at the Sachsenring, grid position is very, very important because overtaking opportunities are few and far between.
It's Kelvin van der Linde, a 5-time winner around this circuit in the ADAC GT Masters Championship, which has been a champion. So he's a driver that knows this circuit better than some. He loves the place, says this is his favourite track on the calendar. It didn't deliver for him the result he would have liked yesterday, but I had a slight reduction in weight for the Audis on balance performance overnight. See what difference that makes. Arjen Guwen, who just started to kind of get his season together at the Nürburgring, a strong 5th place finish there. It was on the podium here last year. It was on the front row of the grid here last year. But another frustrating day yesterday, which culminated in A, a bad qualifying, and then B, a puncture in the race, which put him out of the race. He then, just to rub salt into the wounds, got disqualified because he didn't get weighed with the car at the end of the race. I mean, obviously it made no difference because he didn't finish the race anyway, but just another thing in the catalogue of things that keep going wrong for poor old Arjen Guwen. He's a great driver, isn't he? And just hasn't had any kind of luck this year other than bad luck, really.
We've seen how good he is in Porsche 6 Carrera Cup Germany, Porsche Mobil 1 Super Cup. We know he is very rapid, and we've seen flashes of that in DTM. But sometimes when it ain't going your way, it really ain't going your way. And as you said, if it wasn't for bad luck, he wouldn't have had any luck at all this year. It's going to turn around one day. You know, he who sticks with it eventually wins, but he must be feeling very frustrated. Got a good team behind him, though, and a good teammate, Manthey EMA, and, of course, Thomas Preining, defending champion in the DTM. So lots of wisdom to draw on.
Absolutely right. So far this year, in terms of qualifying, Jack Aitken has had 3 pole positions on merit. He got a 4th pole position yesterday because he got promoted onto pole position. And we've had 2 poles for Kelvin van der Linde. That was at the Lausitzring and at the Nürburgring on the Saturday of the last race meeting. They're the only 2 that have scored more than 1 podium. We've had more than 1 pole. We've had a pole for Nicky Thiem. We've had a pole for Thomas Preining, 1 for Max Powell, 1 for Maro Engel, and 1 for Mirko Bortolotti. on board with iEngine and he's going out now. What's left on the clock? 8 minutes, which means more and more engines being fired up. I look out the commentary box window and see more and more cars, including Maro Engel, nosing out of the garage. And I can see that the AB Sportsline Audis are getting ready to go. And the first of them to be released onto the circuit is going to be Kelvin van der Linde. So you'll see his Audi coming out, the Red Bull livery on the car in a moment's time. And his brother Sheldon amongst those that are pouring out of the pit lane now. I suspect Ricardo Feller will be one of the last to go because he's already done some laps. He's now released. But we've still got the two Winwood Mercedes of Maro Engel and Lucas Auer. They are there waiting to go. Are they waiting to time this so they're the last two over the line? Potentially so.
Yes, well, that's a bit of a white knuckle ride, isn't it? Interesting that Emil Fry, just looking, Lucas Auer has now just pulled out of the garage. Emil Fry have got Jack Aitken out ahead of everybody else by some distance. He pulled out some seconds before everybody else was out on a clear track. A fairly cautious approach maybe for Jack Aitken. Wants to get out there while the track is clear. So he's on his out lap at the moment. He'll be on his build lap next, and then it'll be a push lap well before the clock strikes 0.
Right, Ian Nguyen crosses the line, starts his first flying lap of the session with just over 7 minutes to go. You're right on board now with the former Porsche Carrera Cup France champion, former Porsche Super Cup front runner. He makes his way into turn 1 now, one of the slowest corners on the lap, down to second gear in 75 kilometres an hour. Then you go downhill through towards the bottom of the hill. In and around him, you've got several cars as well. This is Sheldon van der Linde with the onboard, who's just getting up towards the end of his out lap. He's just down at turn 12, where we saw that mega move yesterday from René Rast on Kelvin van der Linde. It's a big downhill run into turn 12, the waterfall, but Brian, you did another run. Don't know why, but you did another run around the track last night, and actually you spotted a slight uphill climb right at the end of that braking point. Yeah,
there's something about TV cameras that flatten out tracks. There is a lot of undulation here. You don't appreciate how much there is until you do actually run around it for some lunatic reason. As the sun was setting last night, it was actually very pleasant. Heading in towards turn 12, where you come down the waterfall, and my impression was, well, it's flat into turn 12, but quite a steep climb up into turn 12. Then down a little bit on the exit of turn 12, and then a very steep climb up to turn 13. And you realise when you're out on track quite how tricky that final corner is, because you've got banking, a little bit of banking, you've got the steep uphill, you've got a corner. Getting that right is quite an art, and if the driver can get the exit of turn 13 right, it sets them up along this part, the pit straight, in towards turn 1, to make a good challenge.
Still a build-up lap, wasn't it, for Ian Nguyen? Only a 1:24, so it's going to be this one and the next one, where they'll get 3 laps out of the tyres, not sure. So he makes his way down through turn 2 now, down towards the Castrol Amiga turn here at turn 3, the bottom of the hill. That's another slow second gear corner, just over 80 kilometres an hour, up through the lefts at turns 4 and 5. It's about 115 kilometres an hour, and third gear through turn 6, 130 kilometres an hour through here. And you build up the speed a bit more before you attack the next turn at turn 7. Going into that, about 200 kilometres an hour. It's really quick at the top of the hill here, and obviously a personal best for Ian Nguyen, but the time is more relevant. 40.6. He's only 2/10 down on the absolute best first sector of Ricardo Feller. So it's going to be a reasonably good lap this if he keeps it up. The first sector is a long one as well. Second sector is very short, but through there he loses another 1/10.5. So at the moment he's on course for around about a 1 minute 18.3. The next lap, he'll want to improve upon that. He's got to really get into the 1:17s. But the absolute best first sector has just gone to Thomas Preining in his in the other Porsche for Manthey, the 40.408. There's a 16.7 through the second sector, which is not far off either. Nguyen does a really good last sector, actually, to get a low 1 minute 18. But here is Thomas Preining running wide, coming out of turn 12 as he puts it to the absolute limit and then a little bit beyond. He goes into turn 13, sprints for the line. This could be the fastest lap of the session so far with 4 minutes to go. And it is 1:17.613 for the reigning champion, with Jordan Pepper up to second on a 1:17.7.
Jordan Pepper, who has been impressive in every session that we've had here at Sachsenring this weekend, making his debut in the DTM, sitting in for Christian Engelhardt, doing a great job. Luca Engstler now jumps to the top while that's going on, a 1:17.542, but I don't think that's very safe. I think every car that's coming now is looking to improve. Kelvin van der Linde up into P2, 1:17.587. He was the quickest of anybody in Sector 3.
Yeah, Luca Engstler, top of the times, 1:17.542, 71 thousandths of a second between Engstler Kelvin van der Linde and Preining, but Maro Engel has just set the absolute best middle sector. He's a couple of tenths down in the first sector, though. But it is going to be close, this, and the Mercedes just coming into turn 13. It's going to pop him somewhere up in the top 4 or 5 at least. He comes through, he goes fourth quickest, 1:17.642. Thomas Preining, another absolute best in the first sector, and that's 2 tenths quicker than he went last time around. And he's only slightly down on the best middle sector, which is short anyway. So this should be popping Thomas Preining back up onto pole position. If he nails this last sector, then McLaren's not quite going to get in his way. He'll get the lap in, he goes through. He doesn't quite do it though. Second place, 14 thousandths of a second is all that splits him and Luca Engstler. So Luca with a really good lap there. And interestingly, Brian, he was one of the drivers that went out and did a couple of laps early in the session, wasn't he?
Yes, he got the heat into the tyres, didn't he? Maro Engel was quick in the middle sector, but he had a slow sector 1. Also quick in the middle sector, Luca Stoltz. So the middle sector certainly working well for the Mercedes. That is proven by the fact that a 1:17.384, but Kelvin van der Linde eclipses that with a 1:17.319. It's Audi to the top.
Yeah, sparks fly from Mirko Bortolotti, the championship leader, as he makes an attack on the way into turn 12, goes up through turn 13. What's this going to be like for Mirko as he goes across the line? 10th for now, 1:17.8, but his next lap should be the real push lap. The second lap is usually the quicker. That's the second lap, flying lap for Maro Engel, and it is 5th place, 1:17.7. He doesn't improve his time, so that'll be disappointing for him. Thierry Vermeulen in the Ferrari has come up to 6th place. But what about this Ferrari? Jack Aitken, race winner, 4th in the championship. Now the British driver with the absolute best middle sector comes through, crosses the line, goes 3rd quickest, 1:17.447 behind Kelvin van der Linde and Luca Stoltz. Jack Aitken in 3rd. Luca Engstler down to 4th now. Thomas Preining 5th. Maro Engel down to 6th. Thierry Vermeulen 7th. Jordan Pepper 8th. Then it's Anjan Nguyen 9th, and Sheldon van der Linde 10th. Mirko Bortolotti needs a lap here. He's only in 11th place currently. How is he getting on at the moment? At 40.5. He's 3 tenths down on the first sector, which is suboptimal.
We're into the final minute of qualifying. When the clock strikes at 0, the drivers that are on a lap are able to continue, and that lap will count. But Sheldon van der Linde is done for this session. He peels off into the pits. P10 for Sheldon van der Linde. That is going to be hard work this afternoon. René Rast, his teammate, is stone last. Marco Wittmann is penultimate from last.
And Thierry Vermeulen is on provisional pole position. 1:17.311 for the Ferrari driver, looking for his first pole position in the DTM. Lucas Auer is out there on a charge as well. Bortolotti, I don't think he's going to do it on this lap, and that's probably good. I mean, get another lap in, but I don't think he'll be able to get another quick lap from the tyres. Jack Aitken is pushing again as well. He's dropped down to 4th place now. He's not far off of the first sector, though. It's a personal best first sector for Jack Aitken. He's coming up to complete the lap now. Where's he going to be? He's going to be 4th, 1:17.690. So he can't move up the order either. But what an effort from Thierry Vermeulen, who never did an absolute best, I don't think, in any of the sectors, but just did personal best all the way through. And it looks like he's nailed it. 1:17.311 seconds, 8 thousandths of a second ahead of Kelvin van der Linde, who's already in the pits. Luca Stoltz 3rd, already in the pits. Jack Aitken is done. He's 4th. Luca Engstler is done. He's 5th. Thomas Preining 6th. Maro Engel 7th. Jordan Pepper 8th. Anjan Nguyen 9th, and Sheldon van der Linde in 10th place. What an effort. Let's hear now from the man of the moment, Thierry Vermeulen.
Copy that, mate. Let's wait 2 seconds at the moment. We are P1. No one is improving at the moment. Let's wait.
Don't get too
Great
excited
job,
yet.
Mega.
Brilliant stuff. Well, we knew that Ferrari was quick, didn't we? We've seen it with Jack Aitken taking the win yesterday, and he'll be looking at his teammate. He'll be very pleased about that. But Vermeulen, it's a tense few moments now as the last couple of cars cross the line. But as far as I can see, nobody's going to get anywhere near that 1:17.311.
No, super effort from Thierry Vermeulen. Previous best in qualifying was 3rd at his home circuit at Zandvoort earlier this season. He's been knocking on the door, hasn't he, several times this year for podiums, for wins. He's still looking for his first podium. He got a 4th at Zandvoort this year. He clenches his fist. Great effort. What a weekend this is turning into for Emil Frey Racing. Thierry Vermeulen on the front row of the grid on pole position. Kelvin van der Linde, Lucas Stoltz, none of them are going to carry any success ballast. Jack Aitken starts 4th, but he'll have 20 kilograms of success ballast after winning the race yesterday. And he'll be surrounded by Luca Engstler and Thomas Preining. Great effort by Luca Engstler as well. And neither of those are going to be carrying any success ballast either. And then you're going to have Maro Engel, who finished 3rd yesterday. He'll have 5 kilograms of success ballast on board. And another great effort from Jordan Pepper, 8th in qualifying, 2 top 10s in qualifying. This is the lap that did it then, on board with Thierry Vermeulen. He had an absolutely clear track ahead of him. On the way into turn 1 he went, and that was the start of a 1:17.311 and a first ever pole position in the DTM. Let's get some reaction now down in the pit lane with Verena.
I've got the pole setter here, Thierry Vermeulen. Congratulations, that's a phenomenal move, and hopefully for the race that also means that you're going to do really well.
Yeah, big thanks to the team. It was amazing qualifying. We didn't quite expect to be here. We knew that the car was really quick, but here it's just one lap that you can do it, so it's all about getting the tire in the right window. But we managed today. It's an amazing feeling. We work day in, day out for this. So let's enjoy this all together and hopefully do a good race.
Right, well, best of luck for the race. Thank you so much, Thierry, and back to you.
Thanks very much indeed, Verena. Yeah, super job from young Thierry Vermeulen, only, as I say, in his 2nd season of the DTM. But he showed great improvement all the way through his first year last year. Was getting into the top 10 on a regular basis at the end of the 2023 season, and several times this year he's been knocking on the door of podiums. Can he finally get a podium, and can he go straight to the top step of the podium? There's no reason why not, Brian, because we know that car is capable of winning after yesterday.
Yes, his teammate did it yesterday, so he could easily do it today. Championship leader Mirko Bortolotto all the way down in 11th.
Meanwhile, we've got more news from Verena.
And I'm here with Kelvin van der Linde, who is starting in P2 in the race. So you've got to be happy about that, especially because Mirko Bortolotti is way further down than you. That also narrows the gap now. Mirko is only 5 points ahead of you in the championship. So time to collect points.
Yeah, let's see. I mean, obviously we didn't expect that one today, but it's a long day ahead of us, so let's go.
But you seem a little bit tense. P2 is fantastic.
Yeah, it's okay. Honestly, just trying to take it race by race at the moment, so let's see.
All right. Okay, Kelvin. Best of luck. And back to you.
Thanks very much, Verena. Yeah, it's no matter what the drivers say, starting to get to that point of the season where everybody is thinking about the long goal, the championship title. If you're in the mix, you can't help but think about it. Confirmation then of a maiden pole position for the young Dutchman Thierry Vermeulen for Emil Frey Racing ahead of Kelvin van der Linde and Luca Stoltz. They get 3, 2 and 1 points respectively. So 2 points for Kelvin. Does move into within 4 points now of the championship leader Mirko Bortolotti. Jack Aitken 4th, Luca Engstler 5th, Thomas Preining 6th. Then Maro Engel with another decent qualifying 7th, Jordan Pepper in 8th, Arjen Guwen much better today in 9th place, and Sheldon van der Linde easily the best of the BMWs in 10th place, because it was a pretty anonymous session for his 2 teammates. René Rast started last on the grid yesterday because he had a grid penalty. Today he's just last on the grid, even though he's only 9/10 of a second adrift of the pole position time. Marco Wittmann there for company. But they both showed good race pace yesterday, even though Marco had half a car after damage in the first few corners. René Rast came through to 7th place. So it could be a pretty interesting watching those 2 champions charge through from the back of the field later on, Brian.
I can just say, good job by Clemens Schmid and Ben Dur, 12th and 16th respectively. So good job by them, out-qualifying a 3 times champion. Takes a bit of doing.
Yeah, and Luca Engstler with his second best qualifying in 5th after a second row start earlier in the season. Luca Stoltz then continues to do what Luca Stoltz does, just keep on being there, being thereabouts and being quick, and he loves this place. He's a fairly laid-back, quiet guy, but he is a demon behind the wheel. You have to be to drive somewhere like this. And a great 3rd place for Luca Stoltz. He'll be up for getting another win like he got last year. 3rd on the grid for him. Kelvin van der Linde 2nd on the grid, and now to within 4 points of the championship lead. And pole position for the first time will belong to this man when we go racing at 1:30. Thierry Vermeulen, a fantastic job by him and the team. That's it from Brian and myself in the commentary box. Let's go back now to Verena.
And the man who's starting in P3 in the race, same as yesterday, you started in P3, you ended on 4th place. So today is the day where you start in P3 and hopefully improve to yesterday.
Yeah, definitely. Like P4 is the first place where you don't get a trophy, so it's not super nice, but was still a good race for us yesterday. And yeah, the team prepped the car overnight, and really had a good quali today, and I saw it's really close. I think I was just 700s behind pole. And there are always 700s on the track somewhere, somehow. But yeah, good qualifying for us, and looking forward to the race now.
So we thank you very much, Lukas Stolz, and we are looking forward to the race, so you do not want to miss it. See you later on here at the Sachsenring for a very exciting race. Bye-bye here at the highlights. Enjoy.